Hey everyone, and welcome. Today, we're going to jump into a quick grammar masterclass. We're talking all about the words that help us describe the absolute best, the biggest, and the worst of everything. Yep, we're mastering superlatives.
So to get our brains warmed up, think about this question for a second. How would you even answer that? To compare a whole bunch of cities and pick out the one that's right at the very top, you need a very specific kind of word.
And that right there is exactly what superlatives are all about. They are the tools we use to find number one, whether it's the absolute top of the pile or the very bottom.
You see, here's the key thing to remember. When you use a superlative, you're not just comparing two things side by side. Nope. You're looking at a group of three or more and declaring the ultimate winner, or, the loser of that group.
Okay, so take a look at this chart. It kind of lays it all out for us visually, ranking some European cities by how pricey they are. You can see London is way up there with $5 signs, while Bucharest is down at the bottom with just one. This is the perfect setup for our first examples.
So, based on our chart, we can easily say this. London is the most expensive city. See that phrase, the most expensive? That's our superlative. It tells us without a doubt that London is number one for cost out of this whole group.
And then, on the flip side, you've got Bucharest. It's the least expensive city. This shows us the other end of the scale. Not the top, but the absolute bottom. Makes sense, right? Most for the top and least for the bottom. Okay, so you're probably wondering, how do we actually make these superlative words? Well, there are two main rules you gotta know. And it all boils down to how long the adjective is. It's actually pretty straightforward. For those longer adjectives, words with two or more syllables, like expensive, you just pop the most or the least right in front of it. But for short, punchy, one-syllable adjectives, like strong or tall, all you do is add est to the end. So you get strongest or tallest. Easy. All right, let's add another layer to this. What happens when something is close to the top but isn't the number one? Well, for that, we've got a really cool and useful little phrase. This is what I call the one-of rule. You use it to say that something is part of that top-tier group, or maybe part of the bottom-tier group. It's in the club, but it's not necessarily the president of the club. Let's circle back to our city list. We all know Paris is super expensive, right? But it's not the most expensive city on our list. London holds that title. So we'd say Paris is one of the most expensive cities. See? It's in that top bracket.
Now, this is super important, so don't miss this part. When you use that one of phrase, the noun that comes after it always has to be plural. We say one of the most expensive cities, not city. Why? Because it's one out of many.
Okay, theory time is over. I think you've got this. Let's do a quick check and put this new knowledge to the test. I'm going to show you some words and I want you to build the sentence. You ready? Let's do it.
All right, first one up. We've got Singapore. Expensive place in Asia. How would you put that all together using our one-of rule? Go ahead, pause here if you need a sec to think it through. Ready? Here's the answer. Singapore is one of the most expensive places in Asia. We use one of the most because expensive is a long adjective, and we're saying Singapore is in that top group. And of course, notice the plural, places. Okay, number two, the Gobi Desert. Not crowded place on earth. Think about what not crowded really means. We're talking about empty, right? So are we going to use most or are we going to use least? And here we go. The Gobi Desert is one of the least crowded places on Earth. Not crowded automatically points us to the bottom of that population scale, so we use the least. You're doing great. Let's try a fun one. Something I think we can all relate to. Taking out the garbage. Not exciting, thing to do. I think we all know where this one is going. How do you say it? Yep, the answer is taking out the garbage is one of the least exciting things to do. Again, not exciting means it's way down at the bottom of the phonometer, so we use least. How did you do on that one? All right, last one for our little quiz. The cobra. Dangerous. Snake in Africa. So is a cobra going to be at the top or the bottom of the danger scale? And there it is. The cobra is one of the most dangerous snakes in Africa. Dangerous is a long adjective, and it definitely puts the cobra in that top group of animals you want to avoid. Fantastic job working through those.
And that brings us to the end. But before you go, I want you to think about this for a second. What was the most useful thing you learned today? Was it the est rule for short words, or maybe that tricky one-of rule? Answering that for yourself is really the best way to make sure all this information sticks. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you next time.